Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. April has come and gone in what felt like a lightning flash, and so I have a month's worth of decks, books, and various miscellaneous bits and bobs to share. If you've watched my channel for a little bit, you may know, but if not, I start with all of the decks, tarot, oracle, etc., and then I make my way into the books that I've read during the month and offer, mini reviews on those, and I end with the miscellaneous objects and experiences that I want to reflect on and share. Without further ado, I'll get into the decks. There's actually quite a few this month. A lot of the time, that's a boring area for me, but I have felt compelled to play around with some new decks or bring some old favorites back into the mix, into the rotation, one of which is the Animamundi Tarot, along with an oracle by the same creator, the creator being Megan Weirdwin, Weirwedden. So these two decks are that same art style. The Animamundi Tarot, you may know, is more of an animal deck. So, in my opinion, one of my favorites. There's a sort of simplicity to it. The linen cardstock is really high quality. I like how it's not super shiny, and it doesn't have that linen aspect to it that's overly slidey. It's like a semi-matte linen, and I just really appreciate it. I'm not a huge animal or nature deck person, but this would probably be my go-to when it comes to decks that are featuring animals and flora and fauna as their primary imagery. The accompanying oracle is the Nocturna Oracle. Equally as beautiful. These backs, I absolutely love the moon. And similar gilding, similar style, and it's just random plants and animals and times of day and natural phenomena that tend to occur at night with a sort of corresponding series of definitions or interpretations for each of the cards. Really been loving those, just bringing them back. I think the Animamundi was one of my first indie decks when I started collecting, so it definitely has a special place in my heart. Likewise, I did bring two new decks into the fold this month. I had a gift card to a metaphysical shop, and so I decided to pick these up. They were on my list and decks that I enjoyed seeing others talk about, which is why I picked them up. I don't have that much to say on them yet, but I am enjoying them. I have the Heart and Hands Tarot by Liz Blackbird. It's like this. It's a black and white deck. Both of these decks are pretty much black and white. I don't know what it was about this month that drew me to that type of style or monochrome or lack of color, black and white style. I like this one. It kind of feels almost like Art Nouveau mixed with very detailed line work. It definitely has a sort of a vintage style feeling in the artwork to me. It kind of reminds me of like the 70s, just the style of the way that things are drawn. Not the entire deck though, but yeah, I've been enjoying that one. I've done some daily draws with this, and then the one that I haven't played with as much is Tarot of the Abyss by Anatorian. I think many people are familiar with this one. I thought I would actually like this deck right away a lot more than I have been. There's nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing about it that I can necessarily describe to let you know why it's taking some time to connect with this deck. I do think it reminds me a lot of a storybook. Maybe it's just that I don't jive as well with super scenic and specific decks that feature very specific scenes with people that look like people. I tend to enjoy decks that have, if there are figures in it, that they are not necessarily looking superhuman, and real-world scenarios are not as much my ballpark either, so I do look for those types of decks where there's, animals, plants, lack of figures. If there are figures like the Toth where they don't really look human, they're not in these very realistic settings. So I guess maybe that's why it's taking me a bit longer, but I think this one pairs really well with books because it has this very storybook-like character, scene setting sort of style to it. So I think I could pair it well when I'm doing any tarot and book related activities that I like to do, like book mapping or using the cards to sort of interpret or create different schemes based on the books that I'm reading. Next, one that I picked up, and it was a bit of a surprise. This was meant to just be a playing card deck for fun to have in the house to play card games. I got this playing card, a visual botanical encyclopedia. Who's the creator? I don't see the creator on here. I kind of got it at one of those dollar store type places. I know that it's different names depending on where you are in the world, but I was very pleasantly surprised. So these are the backs, and actually each of the cards has a different sort of plant on it. It tells you the name of the plant and I think just like the Latin or like scientific name. Yeah, and none of them repeat, so you get all these fun sort of botanicals for each of the cards in the playing card deck, which I thought was really cool. I wasn't expecting that from just a normal playing card deck that you'd pick up at a dollar store, but I am pleasantly surprised. So I haven't actually been playing games with it as much. I do think it looks really pretty on an altar, or if you're somebody who does work with more of the natural world, I do think that this one would be fun. I'm sure you could probably find it maybe on like Amazon or online for relatively inexpensive price. I got it for like something like around $1 or so. Next, we have another one that's come back into the fold, the Starlight Dragon Tarot. Another one of these decks where I think this depicts my taste a little bit better. I mean, the black with the super sharp colors is not exactly the color palette I tend to go for, although it seems like I have enough decks that fit that maybe I do, and I just don't know. But not having figures, for example, this would be like the prime type of deck for me. It's very abstract, yet all of the cards are unique and interesting. I prefer to read with images and cards like this. If that makes sense. And this deck is beautiful. It's square. The gilding is awesome. And oh wait, who's the creator of this deck? It is Steph Engert and Nora Huska. They are wonderful. I remember I got this deck right at the beginning of when things started to get a little bit funky in the world in March of 2020, and they couldn't mail it right away, but they kept in contact for like months and offered me a refund if I wanted it, but they were very kind, sort of just like ran through the process and eventually got me the deck. When they were able to ship things again, they included like extra goodies, so I have nothing but nice things to say about this creator. I believe one of the creators, or both of them maybe together, also created is it the Gypsy Palace Tarot? I think that's the deck. So they are also the creators of that. Another one that I mentioned last month that I've been enjoying is the Orbifold Tarot. Similar sort of reason why in regards to the style, similar to the Starlight Dragon Tarot. Figureless, sort of abstract imagery. This one's a lot more minimal than, I would say, the Starlight Dragon Tarot. But I love it. It kind of reminds me of dreams that I used to have as a kid. I think I mentioned them in one video, or I have probably mentioned them in a couple different videos, just dreams that I had where I didn't have any of my physical senses or a body, and I felt like I was drifting in a vacuum. I used to get them a lot as a kid. I get them every once in a while now. And if there was like one visual way to depict how those dreams felt, it was that, I was and everything else was almost like these orbs or forms of energy interacting with each other, and it just reminds me of those dreams so much, and I find it, it's really fun to interpret in this way, and when there's a layout of all these different things, it doesn't look like it makes a lot of sense, but I think it looks very visually pleasing on a table, and I find that it's a good jumping off point for me. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is mine. Next, just a version of the Marseille. In here I have a little bit of a less expensive version, or not like a more mass market version of a Noble. I tend to keep like my nicer ones that I like to collect, and I don't bring those to the shop or like throw them in a bag, but this is one that I will just bring around and also use with clients, and I have no problems with somebody touching this copy. Also just a version of the Toth, which I keep in this bag. My greenie, I'm not even going to take it out because I've shown it so many times, and I'm sure a lot of people know what the Toth cards look like. And then finally, the playing card deck that I probably use the most almost every month, the Hermes playing cards, Hermes Oracle playing cards, something like that, by Robert M. Place. I love them. They can function as a Lenormand if you just take out the extra cards, and all of them have those unique images on them as a little jumping off point, whether it's, like an eye, or, looks like Justice here, things like that. So I really enjoy this deck, as I do all of Robert M. Place's decks, but I tend to find that I use that one a lot. So that's all of the decks. That was actually quite a few for me. Next we'll get into books. Last month I read well above and beyond my reading goal, and this month I was well below my reading goals. So I guess I just maybe was riding the high of having read so many books, and this month was pretty busy in terms of like work and social things, so not as many books read. But the two that I did finish were V.E. Schwab's Gallant, however you pronounce it or want to pronounce it. It's a really great book. I've read a few books by this author before. The 3 books in a sort of magic series. I think it's called A Different Kind of Magic, A Darker Kind of Magic, and like A Conjuring of Light or something like that, along with the Villain series that I believe she wrote as well. This one is a little bit more fun and fantasy. It's not as, I don't know, something about it almost reminded me of a storybook meant for kids, but told in the way that adults would receive better. If I could compare it to anything, I would compare it to Coraline. For those of you that are familiar with the book or the movie, there is this sort of other world that the character can go into that mirrors the world that she's in, and I don't want to give too much away, but it is sort of like the shadow version or a darker version that needs to feed off of the version that she's in. And she starts as an orphan, she doesn't really know what's going on, and fun tidbit, I guess, seeing a protagonist like this that I haven't seen before, she can't speak, so she's not deaf, but she can't make audible sounds with her throat or her mouth, so she can't even scream or cry or, like emit. She can't laugh either, so it's an interesting take seeing how a protagonist like this navigates the world, and of course, with all stories, there's significance to why somebody is a certain way in a story, so there is something deeper to the mute nature of our protagonist here, but I found that to be a nice lens through which we get to see the world, somebody who can't communicate verbally, and how there are benefits, of course, and drawbacks in this world. But it was really fun. I think that it had this sort of very old-timey feel. If I had to place where it was, there's no geographical markers, but I would say it's probably in the UK in maybe the late 1800s, thereabouts. No dates and places are named, but that's kind of the feeling I got. Next, we have Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. This was a pleasant surprise. I've never read anything by this author before. It's a very witchy book, as you could tell by the cover. How would I describe this one? I would say, if I had to, without giving anything away, it reminds me of if I were to mix practical magic with The Great Gatsby. It's very much in the 1920s. Again, there aren't really years or geographical markers that we would understand. It is sort of a fantasy world where I guess a war has happened that I guess is meant to parallel or be symbolically connected to World War I. However, this war happened in regards to magic. So magic is well known in this world to some degree, more or less, but it is also now it's outlawed, it's a crime, and we see the perspective of 2 different protagonists going through this world, both navigating having magic or being surrounded by magic, and this sort of illicit underground magical world. It kind of reminds me of the Prohibition era in the Roaring '20s in the US, but magic being that sort of prohibited substance or thing. And so there are these grand parties, just like Great Gatsby, on this beach thrown by a very wealthy family or group, and we have our protagonist who's sort of the outsider looking in, who ends up within the circle and running in these very wealthy things through just a series of events. So that's where you get that, but then the practical magic aspect comes in when there's this sort of like connected characters, sisterhood, magic. I also like that there's definitely sort of like a nod to, in a very well done way, queer relationships, and integrating that in a way that doesn't feel, like tokenized or like it's trying to make a point. It very much is just woven into the fabric of this book. So for those of you who are fascinated by that time period, especially in the US, the Roaring '20s, Prohibition, and if you've liked in some way, The Great Gatsby and Practical Magic, this book is great. I love the sort of glamour that you get when that era is referenced. Everything was sort of lush and lavish and over the top, at least when you look at the upper 1%, the upper echelon of society. I just find that to be so fun to read about, and the imagery in this book is amazing. So I would definitely recommend this one. And I'm going to look out for some more books by Francesca May to see if there's anything along these lines. That's all the books, only 2 books this month, but I will now jump into any sort of miscellaneous bits and bobs. Actually, I'll start with the camera that I'm filming on right now. I upgraded my camera. I'm so happy about it. I'd wanted to get just a better filming setup, and I enjoy taking pictures. I'm not really a professional photographer by any stretch, but I do enjoy. I'm more of a hobby. I'm an enthusiast rather than a sort of technical expert, but this is the Fujifilm XS10, and I was debating going for a different model, but I kind of was like, if I'm going to invest in a camera, I want to go for the one that I really want, and so far I'm really happy with it. A lot of my recent Instagram pictures are taken with this camera. I think that it's very user-friendly for people like me. I'm not very familiar with all of like the settings and technical aspects. I've taken a few photography classes in my life, and I do this all the time just for fun as a hobby, but I by no stretch know a lot about cameras, so it has been very user-friendly for me. But that's one of the biggest miscellaneous bits that came into my life this month. Others include, let's see, I've been thrifting a lot. I don't really share too much in terms of like fashion, style, or that type of stuff on this channel, but I am somebody who loves style. I love shopping, which is of course a habit or a hobby that gets expensive very easily, and you have to be careful with that one. But I found some great thrift finds. For example, this jacket that I'm wearing is, I'm not sure what color it's showing up. The lighting today is not very good. It's overcast, but it's sort of like a deep red burgundy in real life. So I thrifted this, and I sort of feel more accomplished when I can get something for a really good price, something that was probably a lot more expensive. Likewise, what else did I get? I got these 2 bags, a brown and a black one, of similar sizes. I think that these mid-size bags are really nice for carrying like a book and a tarot deck and just like any essentials. I pretty much just always carry like a bigger messenger bag or like a tote, and I can fit my laptop and everything in there, but sometimes that's not what I want. I want a smaller bag that's not as, cumbersome, but I do want to take a book and a tarot deck and just like little things like, trying to think, like hand lotion, lip balm, all that type of stuff. So those were nice finds as well. And, I put these on, I don't know why I put these out to share, but these sunglasses, so fun, ready for the summer. But yeah, I think that covers most of the miscellaneous things, and now I guess we'll end off on the experiences, what's happened this month. A lot of social stuff for me. I never knew that I knew as many Aries and Taurus individuals as I do, but even in the last week of April, I had 2 different birthday parties, so I had to go into the city, and as somebody who's an introvert, I do take a lot of time to recharge, and so as much as I love everybody in my life, all of my friends, I'm not at all shy, or I don't thankfully have any social anxiety or anything like that. I still take a long time to recharge, so I'm happy now that I have some time to rest and relax. Work has been a little bit all over the place, just making different transitions that I might share further at a later time, but everything's good in that neck of the woods. And what else is there to share? My allergies have not been so bad this month, or at least I thought that they weren't, and I was like, oh, it's great, I can walk around outside. I wasn't having any issues with stuffiness or just irritation, puffiness, scratchy throat, none of that. And I was like, I think I got away with it this year. And lo and behold, as the past few days have rolled around, I've just been getting these splotchy sort of rashes all over for reasons unknown, and my doctor was saying that they thought it was maybe it's contact dermatitis, maybe it's just your allergies and something's inflamed. Have you changed anything? So still trying to figure that out. It's been getting increasingly actually more irritated and worse, and just in various areas. Very strange. And here I thought I escaped the allergy train, but I guess Mother Nature still had something in store for me, so maybe that's TMI. But for us out there, for other fellow allergy sufferers or people who have sensitivities to various things, you know the struggle sometimes. But I think that about covers it. I'd love to know what's up with all of you, my lovely community. Please share down below some books and decks and just random things that you care to share. I always enjoy listening and also getting recommendations from others in the community and my friends. So I hope you are all well. Like and subscribe if this was fun or interesting. And until next time, bye.